Okay, so this is going to be a walkthrough of the study guide for exam number two. And what I'm also going to be doing is I'm going to be doing a demonstration of some of this functionality. Like some of the, I know we had talked quite a bit about functions. Some of the, there's a couple esoteric ones out there. And what I want to do is actually the exercises have we actually will use those in some of the exercises. So what I'm going to be using as the example for this is the, for chapter three, the Paradise Resort and Spa banquet room renovation spreadsheet. All right, so it's the renovations, what we call the renovation spreadsheet. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through this and um, demonstrate some of the functions. Some of the stuff is I'll be doing in this spreadsheet. Other things I'm just going to be going over the terms. All right. So with that, let's look at our study guide here. So a couple things to do. Um, from at the outset here, you want to go back and just make sure you're comfortable with the concepts of what we do around formatting cells. So there's different some of the basic blocking and tackling kinds of things, but being able to assign different number types, currency versus number versus another one, um, adding a column, inserting a column, using autofit. Remember autofit is um, the feature where you can go to the top of the cell. You go to the top of the cell and just double click at the top of the cell and will automatically widen, set the width of your that particular column based upon what's in that column. All right. All right. And then, you know, we talked about creating a formula. We're going to do more stuff with formulas in this review, but be comfortable. It begins with an remember a equal sign. The formulas begin with that. Functions will also functions are part of the formula, or it can be implemented within a formula. All right, so we can do an equal sign, um, a function or some mathematical operation or whatever you want to do. Um, but it always starts with an equal sign, right? And then we also had talked about the autofill function where or autofill functionality where we can take a formula in a cell and then copy it, and it will automatically adjust the sizes of it will automatically adjust the addresses of the cells. All right, so a couple things. So we've got also about being able to apply colors for the cell fill and how to turn filtering on and off. Just to show you that real quick, I'm going to create another spreadsheet here so I don't mess this one up. All right, so filtering can be set um, as we go to data. So where you see the filtering stuff at is going to be here, under data. Right. If I click filter, what I do is I will select a range of numbers or a range of cells. All right, and then I will apply the filter. So basically, I just select a range of cells. Um, uh, no, actually, because I don't have anything in here. So let me put some numbers in here, just so I have them. All right, and I'll make that a series. Okay, just did a fill series here. If I want to filter this row, I would highlight, so I could say highlight these columns, right, and then click filter. And what you'll see is in the first row, what you'll see is this pull down, all right, which is the where you would set the filter. So if I've got like me do another set of numbers here. Usually what you'll see is you apply a filter on the first row, and then what you do is you start your data on the second row. So I'm just going to create a bunch of numbers here. All right, so what I can do here is when I turn the filtering on, if I click this here, it will pull up the filter. So what the filter will say is select all, or I can select the number. So if I only want to select the number 17, if I set that filter, all I'm going to see is 17. The numbers are there, all right? So it doesn't erase the numbers. It just reduces the view. And what it'll do is it'll reduce all of the, it'll hide all of the rows where you don't have a match on the filter. And you can do multiples of these, you know, along the line, or I can set, if I want to do 7 and 17, or any number of 27 and 17. So I can, if I see a filter, and what you can tell filters are, you'll see this kind of pull down here. And you'll also see that, and once again, this is on the data tab of the ribbon. All right, and then this is lit. So you can do a clear ribbon or clear filter. All right. Or if I click the filter, I mean, a couple different ways we can do this. So one way to do it would be to apply a filter. So we just click, select the range. I've now applied the filter. If I want to get rid of the filter, I can actually just come up here to the filter. There's the filter icon on the ribbon, and I can just click that, and it'll go away. All right, so that's filters. All right, so that's, we talked a little bit about that. And we also talked about colors. So the idea of being able to set the fill color. So if I wanted to set this range of numbers here, right, to be a color, I would come to our home, and I would use this icon here, the paint bucket. If I pull that down, it will give me, a palette to work off of. All right, and if I hover over the, if I'm hovering over the colors, it'll tell me what the color is, because each one of these has a different, kind of different shade. So this is green accent 6, lighter 80% versus green accent 6, darker 50%. Each one kind of has its own. What you'll see sometimes in questions, like in the assignments, you'll actually see that being called out. So that's how you find that. All right, you just kind of, you call up the palette, and you hover over something, and you'll find it. Right, if I click that, it now fill all of the cells. Remember, it does not touch the values. It's simply a formatting of the cells, the presentation of the cells. All right. Okay, so we also, so that's actually kind of from like the first exam. This is some of the stuff you want to be comfortable with. So we talked about named ranges and how you can use a named range in a formula. All right. So for that, let us go to problem 3, our worksheet for problem 3. Okay, and what we have here, there's a bunch of stuff in this, but what you'll see is a list of functions, actually, if we do the click up here, you can see, what you do is you want to see how many, if you want to see how many name ranges there are, you click up onto the data box or the formula box, the cell box, and you'll see the list. You'll see a list of all of the all of the name ranges. If you click one of those, it will take you to where it's at. All right. So in this one, this increase in revenue is actually incorrectly set. All right, because it should be here, should be on the 40, not down below. Okay. So, and if we did this calculation using that range, what would happen is you get an error. So what you can do is we can come in here and we can change the name. So if I do increase in revenue, and what I'll do is, remember, it shows it's locked in on a absolute address. So remember absolute addressing. And what I want to do is I want to change it to be 14, not 15. All right. So if I come up here and I pull this down, I do my increase in revenue. Boom, there we go. All right. So that's the name ranges. So you can do selections of name ranges. You can either set the name here, or you can define the names up here. Okay. So in this case, what we did is we actually use this name range to an absolute address cell, or a cell that when we reference it in the formula, this will be a fixed location. All right, because this is going to be referenced across multiple formulas. All right, and the way we would do that is in the formula we would reference it with, and we'll show you in a second, a $sign, for the row, and a $sign in front of the column designation. All right, so that's our named ranges. We talked about the some of the basic formulas: the min, the max, the average, and the sum. And the way that works, or the way this works, just to show you, as we did, if I take this row right, this selection right here, if I do an equal sum, all right, and I select my range, and I close my parens, all right, so this is the sum of this column of numbers. If I want to get the average of that column of numbers, which is that number, which is the number of the sum of everything divided by the number of items, I would change that to an AVG function. Oop, typo. So it's actually, the thing that's interesting, it's not AVG, it is average, but it's smart enough to know that I made that mistake. So averages. So that's the average, and I can change all of these. That's the basic functions. But there's a couple we talked about, and I want to do a demonstration of them because they're a little more esoteric. Okay, so this is the min-max functions. There's a function out there called datediff. All right, and what it's used, it's actually been around quite a while. So it actually originated on Lotus and Lotus spreadsheets. And what it does is you feed it some dates. You feed it a start date and an end date, and what you want the result to come back in. And what it will do is it will calculate the number of days or months or years that occur between those two dates. All right, so let's look at an example. So that's actually also in our chapter 3 example. We'll take a look at that real quick. All right, so what I have here is I want to see, I have two dates here. So I have the renovation date and the renovation completed date. And then I have a column I need to populate called length of renovation in days. All right. So what I need to do is I want to use date diff, because date diff is already, it's a function. It's already built. We don't have to do anything, we don't have to figure out what the algorithm will look like. All we got to do is figure out what the function is and feed it the right parameters. So I've actually put the formula in this column right here, in this right here. And what you'll see is it's a date diff. Increase the size a bit. It is date diff, DATEDIF, and then I put the address B6, C6, B6, C6, and then in double quotes I put a capital D. All right, so the way you would read this formula is take the date in here, take the date in here, figure out the distance, figure out the difference in days, and put that result here. All right, so I've done that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this down. And you'll see when we look at this, it calculated, it moved all of our addresses. It lined up all of our addresses automatically. Okay, so that's date diff. All right, so the trick sometimes is making sure, on the formatting of it. So it's the two dates, or the addresses of the cells that contain the two dates, followed by what you'd want this to be. So you can either put a D for days, the M for months, and I believe the parameter has to be in double quotes. It doesn't like single quotes. All right, so double quotes D. So that's the date diff in action. There's a lookup function. So we talked about it, but I wanted to actually show you it in action, so you get a better sense of it. And that's actually also in our problem from chapter 3. So let's go take a look at that. So a lookup function. So what a way a lookup function is designed is that you can get a range. You can assign a range of numbers, all right, or a range of cells, and predicated on a value, it will give you what the corresponding matching number is in a range of tables. All right, so what we're going to work with is, and actually what we're going to do is we're going to use another example of our named range. All right, so I've got this little table down here, which is the room classification table. All right, so 0 to 250,000 is bronze, from 250 to 500 is silver, 500 to 750 is gold, and anything above 750 is platinum. All right, so it's a table. So it's two rows, row, column, row, column. All right, I've converted this. I've actually taken this range right here of cells, and if you see, I have a name range called room classification. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my lookup function, and I'm going to use my feed it my named range. And this right here is the formula. So it's equal lookup. That's the function. I'm feeding it a number. I'm feeding it a parameter I6. All right, so I'm feeding it the value that's in this particular cell, right, which is the projected quarterly revenue. All right, and then I'm saying, okay, now go to this named range, which is this number right here, which is these cells right here. All right, and depending upon what this value is, come back with where it fits in this range. All right. So that's pretty slick. So this will give me a number. So this will give me a lookup of this. This will give me a lookup of the numbers or the information. All right, and assign it in there. Okay, and then I can fill this out just using the formula, just using the autofill of the formula. All right, and when it executes that formula, this is the lookup function. I'm feeding it what the revenue is, and it will do the lookup. So it does a lot. It does a fair amount of stuff. I mean, it's it's pretty slick little function there. All right. So that's another example of of the lookup. So let's take a look at our lookup function, how we can search for data. Count if and sum if functions. All right, so a count if function, and that's actually on the second page of our diagram here. Hang on a second. Oh. Got it. Okay. So on the second page, which is under the room analysis, all right, it asks for to be able to have a list right here. I have a range of values, all right, which reflect different rooms, when they were rented, and then what the charges were for each of these rooms. Okay, and then what I have over here is a couple, some sales analysis. So, very simple sales analysis. The room name and what the total charges are for each of the different rooms. So we have the Musica room, El Dorado, Pueblo, technology rooms. Okay, and what one of the things they ask us to do is, okay, given that I have this information here, I want to get a summary. I want to be able to go through this list of data and count the total charges up, and also get the count of how many times it was used. All right, so that's what the difference is. So I have a room sales analysis. I have a room usage analysis. All right, so let me take a look here. All right, so what I'm going to use for the summary actually, let me do the room usage count. All right, what I'm going to use is what we call a count if. All right, and the way a count if works is you give it the range of numbers. All right, it'll go through this count of this column. So I'm going to say I get from A6 to A36. All right, A6 to A36. Doesn't have a header, just the data. Look for something it's got, and I put this once again. Put this in double quotes. Equals the musical room, which matches what we have here. All right. So the way you would read that is go through this column, or read this range of cells, look for the musical room, and if whatever you see that number, whenever that name shows up, you put a count out there. All right. So there's my count. Right, so there's 7 occurrences. Actually, I checked it. There are 7. All right, so same kind of deal. I can come here. I can do my cell pull down. This is our you just see it did the adjustments as we went. And then in addition, there's another one called sum if. So what sum if does is instead of counting numbers, what it'll do is we can go through a range of numbers or a range of items, and everything that matches it, I can, you know, include another, an entry from another column. So let's kind of read how this looks. So this is going to be a sum if, which is, so it's an equals sum if A6 through A36. All right, which is this range right here, A6, A36, or if I click this, whoop, if I click that, it'll highlight it. All right, the formula. I look for the musical room, all right, and then I put for the third parameter. So there's three parameters in this one. All right, so the first one is the first parameter is my, what I'm going to do my evaluation against. The second parameter is what I'm doing a lookup of. And then the third parameter is the range, is what I want to sum up, the column I want to pull the number out of. Right? And you see, they don't have to be side by side. I've got the dates in between. So if I execute this, what it will do, similar to what the count if, except that what it'll do is it will then take wherever it finds a match, it will take that value from the match and add it to a summary, which will then put into the cell. Okay, that's the result of that function. So that's our sum if function. We'll pull down on this. So actually, one of the things we have to do, so one of the things that happens with this formula, just to show you here, I didn't think that was right. When you do the pull down, it's not smart enough to go back and enter the difference. All right, it'll do the range. So if I go here, it'll do my range. So I'll have A6, A7, 8, 9. As I'm going through, it'll process the range. The problem is, what it won't do is it will not automatically update the formula. So you have to go back into the formula here and like copy. Or or what you could do, the other thing you could do in the formula, is instead of entering that hardwired name, if you want that to be copied, you could use the address. All right, so for the middle parameter, the criteria I'm going to use is the cell address. All right, so the way this reads now is, this range, and this cell. Right now, what will happen is I'll get the same address, but if I copy this cell down, so I got different numbers here. And the same thing is true here. So I can come to this formula, and instead of putting, the hardwired name in there, that will work. The name, if we put that name in there, it will work as a parameter. The problem is, though, that if you copy the formula, it won't copy over correctly. All right. So instead of that, what we're going to put in here, I'm going to click that cell. All right, and then I can look at that, and then I can, if I just simply use the addresses. So a lot of times, what you want to do is you want to use the cell address if especially if you're copying formulas, because if you hardwire something into the formula, it might work. It'll work okay for maybe the first one, but if you copy that same formula, it might not work. All right, so that is now all copied up. So if you look at this, we'll see our, we'll see our formula in here. So that's an example of the sum if versus the count if. All right, so it's some examples of some stuff you want to look at. Kind of sum if. Data formatting. So we had there's some stuff around like data formatting you can take a look at as well. So I think there's some stuff in there you might want to just practice a little bit on. Oh, something else I want to show you on this. Let me go back to this one right here. So there's on number 2 on this problem here. All right, there is a loan information, and one of the things they ask us to do in this is to do a calculation of what the loan payment will be. All right, so they give us the amount of the loan, the annualized rate, the term in years, and then what the monthly payment will be. All right, so what we can do is we come here, given that, the way you would calculate it, we would use, there's a couple of formulas, different formulas. The one I chose to use here is the IPMT function, all right? And it's a little tricky because what you have to do is you have to get the right the sequence. So what this is it's the annualized rate, which is your percentage divided by 12. The second parameter is, I believe, I'm not sure what the second parameter is. Hang on a sec. You can do what you can do to look up this stuff. What I've used, and this is pretty useful. I go out to Google and find it. But there's a website out here called Exceljet, and they actually do a nice little job of telling you, kind of walking you through, give you some examples of, how these formulas or functions are designed and how do they work. All right, so I believe I have one out here for the IPMT. All right, so the way this works is, and so there's some tricky stuff in the iPayment. So first, so what it'll do is it'll ask us for, the parameter is the interest rate per period. That's the rate. That's going to be the interest rate here. Right. Second thing it's going to ask for is the PER, which is the payment period of the interest, right, which I believe we can set that to be 1. Right. And then the third parameter is the number of payment periods. And once again, this gets a little tricky because what happens is if we get it in, if we get a length of the loan for like 5 years, in order to get the payment periods, total number of payment periods, we have to take that 12 and multiply it, or take the 5 years and multiply it times 12. But then when we do that, once we do that, it will, and then we have to enter the value, the present value or total value of all the payments now. So that's our payment, the payment of the loan, or what our balance is. And the trick on this is apparently it likes that number. That number has to be entered as a negative value. So that's a little bit odd. But if we look at it, let's go back and look at the actual formula again. All right, if I look at the formula, it's IPMP, and I have a couple calculations in it. What I do is I have take B18, which is the annualized rate. I divide that by 12. All right, that's my annualized rate. Um, at my period there, 1. I have the B19, which is the term in years. I multiply that times, actually, I know it's doing it by 12, right? So it's the number of years. So it's 5 years times 12, which gives me the number of months. And then finally, the last value is the amount of the loan. And I'm multiplying that times -1, which makes it negative. And when I click that, it will come back. When we execute this formula, it comes back and it gives us, what our payment will be. Okay. So that's, as I said, that's a little. That's a little. I wanted to show that to you because if you ever see something where it says, "Okay, we want to calculate a payment," and what you can do is go back and look for, you can actually this, as I said, this website's, I think, pretty good in terms of providing like a detail of different functions. If you know what a function, if you have a function name, you can go to the site and do a lookup of, what a description of it, kind of what its parameters are, some examples, examples of invocation of it, things of that nature. Okay. All right. We talk about data functions. Different types of charts. Okay, so a couple things we want to look at the charts. What we remember, if you recall, we talked about with charts. Um, the ability to all we really need to do with this is I can select a range of numbers. And if I want to chart it, I go to Insert, and I can select a recommended chart type, or I can pick a chart type. Either I can do recommended or I can pick my own. So if I want to convert this into a pie chart, I can turn it into a 3D pie chart. All right, that's a quick demonstration of that. The numbers are tied to that. One thing we can do, so if we want to do a breakout or a pull out or create a slice of this, one of the things we can do for effect, we can just grab, we can do is we can highlight we just click a slice of the pie and just pull it out. And what it will do is it'll actually pull out, so we can kind of pull these things out. If there's particular values we want to highlight, or a particular range of something that we want to identify, do a breakout from the pie chart, we can just simply click it and drag it. All right, and it'll kind of adjust the picture dynamically. All right. So that's our chart title, and we can adjust the chart titles. Kind of chart element, up here with the chart elements. So you want to, as I say, you might want to do is maybe just kind of play around with the different types of charts we can that we can work with. All right. So example, a 2D line chart versus the 3D pie chart versus a clustered column. So these are all specific types. I mean, but there's the other ones out there, but you can take a look at these in particular. All right. And then take a look at the different chart types and how to apply the types, to a chart, the styles and how to apply a style to the charts. Remember, the styles are like up here. I can change colors. I can check out layout. These are the styles up top. I think once I've made that change. So I can do a insert, do a line chart. And these are the styles. So the pictures are the styles we can apply to that chart. And we have a whole bunch of them. Right? So that's what we mean by the styles. The chart types, so once we pick a particular type of chart, and don't forget, we can take for the same set of data, I can create multiple charts. Anyway, so I have it as a line chart here. I can take the same thing. I can take the exact same data and turn it into a 2D chart. Or I can come back in and reselect the data. In 1 second. I can reselect our data, all of it, some of it, and create, let's see, let me clear this out. Because it's not helping me. All right. I'm not quite sure why this is doing what it's doing. But anyway, you should be able to create multiple charts off the data. So what we're really doing is we can create, let's see if it works this way. All right. Oh, because all right. We can work on that. Let's take a look at our charts. So we talked about different chart types and styles. Take a look at the, just be comfortable with that. Also, the way that the designs can be changed. All right, so some of the stuff we can do, and that's the stuff up on, if once we're into the chart, once again, if you double click on the chart, okay, something not right here. Yeah, I'm not sure if I got a problem with. Let's come back into Excel. Yeah, so I'll come back into Excel because something was locked up on it. All right, so yeah, see if this comes back. See, new Excel is smart now. Now, what is smart enough to know that we've, if there's errors out there, if it recovered a like working sheets that were out there. So we should see. All right. I'm just going to create a new sheet here. And we'll copy it down. Series, boom. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert this as a chart. Real simple chart here. Expand it out a little bit. And then what we can do is over here, we talk about the chart layout or the chart elements. This is where we come and we can change things like the legend. We can change the data labels. We can change the axis titles, which is the horizontal versus vertical. We can change the chart title. So all of these different attributes of the chart. Remember, a chart is in Excel. It's what we call an object. All right, so it has its own. Excel knows what it is. It's not a cell. It's not a picture. It's a chart. Chart is a representation of a range of data. Okay. As I said, I should be able to. Let me see if I can. All right, so that's back working again. Okay. And I can just put this, I can drag it and drop it anywhere on the worksheet, or either this worksheet or another worksheet if I'm inclined. So I was able, within that same range, I just took a chunk of data and threw it into a different chart. All right, so that's, practice that a little bit. Fill, how to explode a slice from a pie chart, as we said that, we click the slice and we pull it out. All right. Also, we could do a trend line on a 2D chart. All right. And then finally, a spark line. All right, so we'll go back and review the spark line. Remember, the spark line is an itty bitty little mini, it's like an itty bitty little picture or chart that represents the curve of the data or the shape of the data. All right, better just to show an example. All right, so let me create a range of numbers here. And I'm just going to actually make this like just random numbers. That's pretty random. All right. So what the spark line is, maybe if you remember, we get to the spark line. It's under an insert of the chart. So the way you do it, you have a row or a column. All right, but traditionally, I think spark lines work well on rows of data because you can put it, you can represent it, either at the beginning or the end of the row. But the way you do is you select a set of data, go to the spark lines, and you can do a line, a column, do a line, and it'll do the arrange, and then we can pick where we want to put it. If I put it right here, it will create a little chart of my data, kind of of how the data flows. So you see it kind of goes down, then it goes up, kind of a little 245. You can see the kind of the big jump, and then it drops. So it's kind of a general, it gives you a general flow of of how the data is moving. Gives you like a trend you can look at. So it's useful, as I say, it can be used on columns, but it's also very useful in rows because if you have rows and rows of data in a worksheet, um, you can you can use spark lines to give you a representation, a quick representation of what's going on with that data. I think that is about it. Those are the major. I think those are the major pieces you might want to review. Okay, and that's about it. All right. Thank you.